early years when I was a college student, just out of college, I was getting into some of that extremism, and because I had such a passion for Christ and such a narrow vision in what I was doing, that I actually came across some of your teachings on audio, the Grace Awake. You talked a lot about Grace Awakened perspective on missions, and then also your book Messiology, and that kind of helped me broaden my view on other people, and even my on myself, kind of giving myself some grace, and so it really made a big impact in my life. Can you kind of unpack some of those concepts and how you've seen God use those concepts in ministry leaders' lives around the world?
Yeah, of course. I saw how people committed to missions and discipleship, they were still human beings, and how often they would hurt people in the process. I did as well, but because I had this strong teaching when I was so young, I would quickly apologize. Many of the people that became close to me, it's because initially I offended them, including Jonathan McCrosty, who led all of Europe for a long time. But I'd phone him back and apologize, and that's what really won his heart. But a lot of people don't get that into their DNA young enough. The only book that I wrote, which is really all about missions, is Out of the Comfort Zone. But in fact, if you read it, it's about grace. It's an appeal. I touch on many subjects, of course, including finance, but it's an appeal for, a more grace-awakened approach, especially toward people we don't like, we don't agree with. And then we took part of that book and put it in Grace Awakened Leadership, which we can just give away. We print them so cheaply. But Swindoll was an enormous help. But before Swindoll was a woman, Eugenia Price. And you wouldn't maybe have heard of her, but she wrote books that emphasized grace and emphasized love. And the emphasis on love that OM had from day one, that kept breaking us. That kept bringing us back to center point. And so, you can't separate grace and love, because we're not talking about God's grace to save us. That's another whole message. And that's the first few chapters of Swindoll's book. What we're talking about, that grace functioning through us, which is really 1 Corinthians 13, love. And I really am shocked at how many men get into leadership that have not dealt really with the self-life and with extremism, and therefore their lives radiate. It's just absolutely basic. The fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faithfulness. If that isn't functioning, things aren't going right. And you should think twice before you go running off to the mission field to spread your toxic gospel. And again, we're not talking perfection, but we're talking reality.